Welcome back to another segment of Boldly Now. My name is Rachel Morrison, and we are going to experience the wonderful joy of being with Magdalena Satori and Sarah Drew. And Magdalena Satori is an executive director of design, community building, and all around oracle of the future that we're wanting to create together. And Sarah Drew is one of the most prolific writers of our time that has a way to embody mythical, ancient stories into the most visceral, realistic timeline. We are so grateful to be spending time with such dear friends of ours today. Ladies, welcome to the space.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So one of the things that we've been exploring during our time for this event, in many of these conversations, it keeps coming back to it's time for us to be reconnected back into nature and to remember the many gifts that we may have forgotten along the way. And I'm curious if we could go into an exercise where we get to lend our voices to that observation, lend our voices to become a voice of nature, of life on this planet right now, outside of ourselves, and into the experiment of what it means to biospherically communicate with one another. And if that's being said, then, and if we're agreeing to that, I'm noticing that that stillness is an agreement field of just activating what that presence is. And so when you're ready, whoever would like to start, to begin to communicate as if, not even as if, but begin to communicate as life for life. What does she want to say?
You want to go ahead, Sarah?
I think there's such a organic flow that either one of us could start. If you want to start, and I'll just continue the river. Go from there.
So thank you, Rachel, for framing this conversation in that way. It's something I've been thinking about and feeling so deeply of what would happen if we actually acknowledge that we are nature. And it's such an interesting exercise because it's going back to our true nature, right? So it's removing our masks of being humans and whatever that means and that comes with for each one of us, and just going back to our true nature of being part of a natural world that surrounds us and that's always been there, nourishing us and supporting us. And yet it's such a difficult thing to do for us because we have this story of us being something separated from nature and us being special beings that have powers through our mind to actually create a disconnect. I think it's also very interesting that this virus that came today, which was predicted by many civilizations before, there's many timelines that gave us this specific time as a time of awakening for humanity. But it came in this shape and form where it's forcing us to stay inside and to look inside and to be in stillness and to be in the listening. And when we tune into that space of stillness that's where we can hear her. That's where we can hear the earth talking to us. Because she's in our womb, and I think deeper in us women, because we carry her rhythms in our womb. So she's telling us to listen. She's telling us to act from that place of stillness and listening, and to stop acting from our thinking mind, to integrate our beautiful mind and thinking with what she is, and to just reconnect, to replug ourselves. And that comes with so many adjustments at so many levels. Governance and capital systems that we have today are in complete disconnect with it. And I think that systems, creating new systems is not necessary, but it's necessary to look at what system are we part of and how does it work, so that we can reintegrate in it. We can find our way back home. And that's our survival. It's our survival on this planet comes through that. Listening, she's asking to listen and to act from that place of stillness. That's what I've been receiving this time.
Thank you, Magdalena and Rachel. It's wonderful to be here, and just the power of our gathering and our activation together. I love this sense of the story of the return, because in a way, I think we are at this point where the veils are falling, and we're coming back into this state of translucency, where we can feel again the breath moving in and out of us, the breath of Mother Gaia moving. We can feel the blood moving through our veins, moving through our rivers. We feel our material essence and our spiritual essence coming together once more, not as separate beings, but as whole beings. And it's like this wonderful cosmic joke, that cosmic reveal that we are her, she is us, and we're not separated. We're a expression, an experiment on Mother Earth. 99.9% of the species who have lived on this planet have died off. So we're here for this time. We're here as spirit coming into a material form. And I feel we're going into this era where we're going to start to really delight in our interconnectivity with all sentient life, and realizing that we aren't in our silo of being a Homo sapien, but in our connectivity to all the different species, to all the different forms of flora and fauna, we can start to really expand what it is to be a living being. And our world is going to, a billionfold, if you will, expand out in a way that isn't just in the imaginal world, but is in the embodied sense. And we are, of course, at this portal that Magdalena is speaking of, that in a way, in my novel Gaia Codex, there's pointers and indicators towards this time when we are being asked to rebirth both ourselves, but also our relationship to the earth and to each other, and to what civilization or culture can be. So it's this great opportunity, and I think there will be many waves of it, but we have this opportunity together to really start to, as Magdalena was saying, not just act from the mind, but act from the wholeness of a relationship with each other and with Mother Earth herself.
Perfectly said. And with that profound insight of knowing that now is the time to maybe look away from systems change, the most radical systems change that we could possibly experience together, is reintegrating back into the existing system that has been here since the beginning of time. And may these moments of isolation and deep introspection be an invitation for us to deeply feel how separated we actually have become from the way of life, from the way of biodiversity, from the way of meaningful connection with one another, from a way of unnecessarily sterilizing our environments and our body and our experiences into such a black and white cascade that we have forgotten the many colors that are actually available in the star systems, in the flower petals, in the sparkle of a water, and let our breath be taken away by the majesty and beauty that has actually been surrounding us this entire time, waiting for us to come home together.
Yeah. There's such irony, I think, in this moment, in that we're both spending more time together in a virtuality like this conversation, but hopefully we're also having more time just to ground into the earth, into her. I'm finding the garden is the teacher right now, both the garden within and the garden where I'm getting my hands in the dirt.
I feel like our reintegration into this system of nature, it's also happening at such an important point where we learn so much about it and we have the ability to know it, really. Mm-hmm. I was connecting with the dwarf planets recently, and someone mentioned to me that the 4 dwarf planets that were discovered recently that are part of our solar system are 4 female archetype planets. So we're also learning about our system and seeing the signs of what we call the return of the feminine, which is just the return to our mother, the return to our earth, to understanding her and giving her a space in our life that it's relevant and meaningful, and giving back and not just taking from her, just giving back and being part of her.
Yeah. I love that, just realizing that we're here in deep symbiosis, with each other. And I think the feminine, the rise of the feminine, I mean, she's never left us. We have just, many cultures, many of the bases of cultures have forgotten, and it's wonderful to see us reconnect with these lineages, both in the past and I think the future ones that are emergent. I think we're also moving into a different sense of time at this point in time, of how we experience transdimensionality to time.
Absolutely. There's something that has been provoking my thought recently around this concept of Mother Earth. And it's that before she was Mother Earth, she was Lover Earth. And man, oh man, did she enjoy that. And did we enjoy being in lovership, true, passionate, considerably, like infinite. Talk about losing track of time. When we are in deep lovership with another being, or with life, or with ourselves, or however that looks for somebody, there is no time. There is nothing that I cannot give. And there is nothing that I would not want to receive from that relationship of lover without knowing how unbelievably grateful I was that that moment and that gift of whatever was exchanged was actually experienced and taken deeply into me, and not for granted for one moment of that exchange, and how it ripples out into the rest of my day, the rest of my life. When you fully receive a gift from a lover, it stays with you forever sometimes. And what an amazing invitation to be in that way with each other, with our surroundings, with our own words that we choose to speak. And it's not only for the feminine, but in a synchronistic and symphonic union back into life again.
And that concept of time is so interesting today, because when I think about time, like it's nothing else but just measuring the rhythms of nature, right? Our 24-hour day, like our earth turning around itself, the months, the hours. It's just like constructs, the 7 days of the week, which are the 7 planets that we have in our solar system. It's all these constructs that we created around the rhythms of nature, but we disconnected from it. Very few people actually know what our constructs of time mean in nature itself, but they're maps of nature. So that's a reintegration of our mind and hearts, really, of nature and spirit, and reconnecting the constructs that we built into what does it mean in our physical reality of the earth and our solar system and our own bodies that also have a sense of time inside, that we may not need those clocks outside of us because we have that in us. So it's part of the reconnect is understanding what time actually means, and how to measure it without the external constructs that we build. Yeah, what crucial times we're living. As I was saying before, all the calendars of ancient civilizations pointing to this time to be a time of awakening, a time of transition, of shifts, and the stars showing us the way to our future. I'm very inspired by it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was reflecting on a lot of the energy and conversations, and sometimes heated debates and even peaceful protests around the recent indigenous aspects of what's been happening, and why indigenous rights were wanting to be protected in so many ways. And there was a nature aspect, there was probably an economic aspect to it, but there were prophetic aspects of a lot of the reasons why so many tribal rainbow warriors stepped into the front lines of recent years, and even to this moment, because they are holding a story that if A happens, then B is a natural consequence. And finding that by not listening to the wisdom keepers who are holding an ancestral storyline, You know, many of those prophecies are now in this radical time of becoming the shapers of reality based on our decisions when we were given that apex point time and time and time again.
I love that. Just really the shaping of reality and starting to honor and look to, but also become a culture that works with longer spans of time, right? Like in the Indian tradition, they have kalpas, you know, and kalpas can last billions of years. And there's a wonderful saying that in the blink of the eye of Brahman, for every blink of the eye that Brahma makes, 1 billion kalpas in human years passes. And they go on to all these different levels of scale. But we have the capacity, I think, to start looking out with centuries or millennia and to hold those lineage lines both in our families, but also in our communities. You know, we've been in a culture with all its we've been in a culture that in many ways keeps going through cycles of forgetting. And we have the opportunity to step outside of that ring and that samsara, or like in the Greek tradition, they say that when you die, you have a choice of drinking from the river of memory or that of forgetfulness. So let's drink memory. And with the hope and the effort and the prayer to really benefit all beings, take everyone, all of us with us together.
Yeah, I feel that time is coming for us to find those wisdom keepers and to give them space in our society, to listen to them. Some of them have been holding on that information for hundreds of years. Thinking about the Mayans, for example, or the Lakotas. All these tribes that have been surviving in the background of humanity for hundreds of years are now coming out, knowing that this is a time for them to be sharing their wisdom because we're ready to listen, finally. And there is so much wisdom in those tribes, in those civilizations, because they kept the original blueprint of how to live in harmony with the earth. And we have that to learn from them. I also love the narratives and the stories and how they keep the stories of even of creation of humanity. Each one has their own story that they believe and they pass with each other. And I recently talked to some of them that believe that this virus is an elder and a teacher that came back to teach something, to just make us aware that we're in the wrong path. And I love that approach of just seeing the teachings in things instead of fighting it. Mm-hmm. I've been feeling myself very reactive to our mainstream society that's like constantly fighting against things when they show up, instead of embracing them and seeing what is the teaching there, what is the path of growth, instead of the path of construction. And I hope we will listen to them and we will choose that higher way of thinking, and we will learn and we will grow from this, and we will come together and we will reharmonize with the earth so that we can thrive on this planet and create this incredible civilization that we can only create together if we all come with our own stories and narratives and sit around the table and decide of our future. It's such an amazing opportunity that we have in this moment to make that decision, or where do we want to take this? Where do we want to go from here? having the awareness that we have, the scientific and technological knowledge that we gained during those times, and having the intelligence of listening to the elders as well, and the indigenous, and collecting all of these things that we have been building and working for separately, and coming together, and with all that just create our future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that, Magdalena. And I think that metaphor of, you know, we're each facets of this jewel of wisdom and oneness, and we each have, the different cultures have their lineage lines, and as individuals too, we have, you know, these offerings. And I think it's this balance of deeply honoring those who have, through, you know, periled circumstance, kept these lineage lines alive, and also understanding that it's within us as well. It's not outside of us. And we can look in the mirror of speaking with an elder or wisdom keeper, and it can be ignited. But it is also in our lineage, all of our lineage traditions, of what it is to live in harmony with the earth, if we go far enough back. And just as we're coming to a close today, I really want to encourage everyone to spend that time of silence, spend that time of self-inquiry, spend that time of seeking good company that reflects that back in you. And together, I do feel we can grow something quite extraordinary.
Quite extraordinary indeed, when we realize that each one of us stem from an ancient lineage that has been long, long, long forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
But what a celebration in knowing that we have the supreme privilege to be the one in this moment to carry all of their prayers forward into shaping the reality that has been the dream for so many, and our survivorship on this planet through our lineage lines, through the ways that we are choosing to orient to one another and to this very unique moment in time, will give us the right footing to step into the future that we choose to orient ourselves to based on the wisdom we have the ability to listen to. Thank you so much, Magdalena and Sarah, for spending this extraordinary moment together.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Sarah, for sharing this space.
Yeah, thank you to both of you. Yes. And to all that are listening, that we're coming together. Thank you.